Indiana Fever, with this new CBA agreement, you're not going to be able to keep 3 max players, which means somebody has got to go. And I'm going to put this out here. I'm not going to be the guy out here claiming that this person should take a pay cut. No, Caitlyn should take a pay cut because she makes money. No, Caitlyn needs to get her full value, and that's the max contract. It already came out that A'ja Wilson is getting the full $1.4 million. She ain't taking no less.
That's not a casual opinion. That's a franchise-altering directive. And the clock is already ticking because the Indiana Fever are about to face the most consequential roster decision in their history. Keep Kelsey Mitchell and risk losing Caitlin Clark, or let Mitchell walk and build around the player who just transformed the entire league. There's no middle ground here. The new CBA just eliminated it.
The core designation remains in the agreed upon CBA with a tweak, according to a person with knowledge of the deal. SBJ first, the designation remains, so the core is still there, but it is only available to use on players with 6 or fewer years of service. 6 or fewer years of service, which means, what does that mean, KTV? It means Kelsey Mitchell is not eligible to be cored, which means you can't core her, pay her the max for 1 year, and move on.
Here's what changed. The previous collective bargaining agreement allowed teams to use the core designation on any player, regardless of tenure. You could pay someone the max for 1 year, keep your options open, and negotiate later. That safety net just disappeared. Under the new CBA finalized in January 2025, the core designation can only be applied to players with 6 or fewer years of service. Kelsey Mitchell is entering her 8th season. She's not eligible, which means Indiana can't force her into a 1-year max deal anymore. They either sign her to a multi-year contract or she walks in free agency. And that's where this gets complicated.
Boston, who's going to be due for a max this year? You have to give her a max. You got Caitlin Clark coming up. She needs to get paid. Beyond that, you have role players, Lexi Hall, Sophie Cunningham. You have role players that need to get some money. You can't pay 3 max people. It just doesn't work. The Indiana Fever can see if, which I'm sure they will see, if Kelsey Mitchell is willing to accept a 1-year max contract of $1.4 million. They can offer her that. But
Aliyah Boston is entering her 3rd year. She's eligible for a max extension right now, and she's earned every dollar of it. 2nd team All WNBA in 2024, Rookie of the Year in 2023, and the defensive anchor that made Indiana's playoff run possible. She's getting a max contract. That's not up for debate. Caitlin Clark is finishing year 1 of her rookie deal. In 2 years, she'll be eligible for her own max extension. And after averaging 19.2 points and 8.4 assists while bringing 2.1 million viewers per game to the WNBA, she's getting a max contract too. The math is simple. 3 max players don't fit under the new salary cap structure. Somebody has to go.
Year max with the Fever? No. Bro, you're talking about 3 years of a minimum of $1.4 million, and it's going to be going up each year. She's not taking pay cuts. She's going to look for a multi-year deal, a multi-year contract. Her body just shut down in the playoffs. You don't know what's going to happen to put everything on the line for a 1-year deal. You could pop your Achilles, tear your ACL. Now you're not getting a max after that. Now you're getting a minimum.
And this is the part where people get emotional, because Kelsey Mitchell has been with Indiana since 2018. She's averaged 17.9 points per game over 7 seasons. She was the only consistent scorer on some truly terrible Fever teams. She stuck around when the franchise was a league-wide punchline. That loyalty matters. But here's what also matters. Mitchell's body shut down in the playoffs. She averaged just 11.7 points in the postseason on 34% shooting. The Fever lost in the first round to Connecticut, and while Mitchell was struggling, Caitlin Clark was putting up 19 points and 6.5 assists per game in her first playoff appearance. The future is already here. The question is whether Indiana is ready to accept it.
That's it. You sign Kelsey Mitchell to a multi-year max contract. You will never have money for any role players. You won't even be able to offer Caitlin Clark a max, and she could walk on you. She could walk on you. You need to let Kelsey Mitchell, if she's not willing to sign a 1-year max contract, you have to let her walk in free agency. And I don't even think Kelsey Mitchell would accept a 1-year max from the Indiana Fever, because I believe there's going to be probably 3 teams that are going to offer her a 3-year max, supermax contract. That's what I believe.
Now let's talk about what happens if Indiana tries to keep Mitchell. Best case scenario, they offer her a 1-year max at $1.4 million. She declines because Toronto Tempo or Portland Fire or Chicago Sky offers her 3 years guaranteed at the same annual rate. That's $4.2 million guaranteed versus $1.4 million with zero security. Mitchell takes the multi-year deal. Indiana loses her for nothing in free agency anyway. Worst case scenario, Indiana panics. They offer Mitchell a 3-year max to keep her happy. Now they've got 3 max contracts on the books. They can't afford to re-sign Lexi Hull when she hits free agency. They can't bring back Katie Lou Samuelson or Erica Wheeler. The role players who made this team functional all disappear. And when Caitlin Clark's extension comes up in 2027, Indiana has to choose between their franchise player and their loyalty to a 31-year-old shooting guard who's already showing signs of decline.
Wanting to make theirs. But what I do know is the Indiana Fever cannot give Kelsey Mitchell a multi-year max contract. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. The 2 max contracts you need to go to Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark. And they need to get the maxes. I'm not a proponent of them taking shorts. Okay? They need to get max contracts, and then you can fill out your roster with quality role players. Lexi Hall, Sophie Cunninghams. You'll have enough to fill out the roster with quality role players. Okay? Asia Wilson not taking no shorts.
That's not hypothetical. That's the exact situation the Fever will face if they sign Mitchell long-term right now, because the salary cap isn't expanding fast enough to accommodate 3 max players plus a competitive supporting cast. The new CBA increased the cap to $1.46 million per player for 2025, with incremental raises built in through 2027. But even with those increases, the math doesn't work. Asha Wilson just signed for the full $1.4 million with Las Vegas. She's not taking discounts. Breanna Stewart got a max deal with New York. Sabrina Ionescu got a max deal with New York. The league's elite players are getting paid their full value, and they should be. Nobody's asking them to take 30% pay cuts to make roster construction easier for their front offices. So why is Caitlin Clark supposed to be different? Because she makes money from endorsements? That's not how this works. Her Nike deal and State Farm contract have nothing to do with what she's owed for playing basketball. The WNBA doesn't get to underpay its most valuable player just because she's financially secure from outside revenue. That's not a business model. That's exploitation with extra steps. And it sets a terrible precedent for every other player in the league. If the face of the WNBA is taking discounts, what leverage does anyone else have in negotiations?
Not willing to accept a 1-year max contract. You have to let Kelsey Mitchell walk in free agency. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. This Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the channel.
Here's the reality. Kelsey Mitchell is going to get offers. Multiple teams are about to have cap space and a desperate need for scoring. The 2 expansion franchises, Toronto and Portland, start play in 2026 with completely empty rosters. They need veteran leadership and proven production. Mitchell gives them both. She's a 40% three-point shooter with a 7-year track record. That's exactly what an expansion team wants. Chicago Sky just traded Marina Mabre and are rebuilding around Angel Reese. They need a secondary scorer who can space the floor. Mitchell fits perfectly. Dallas Wings missed the playoffs and need backcourt help. Mitchell solves that problem immediately. Any one of those teams can offer her a 3-year max contract with full guarantees, and she'd be smart to take it. Now here's where Indiana has to be honest with themselves. Are they a Caitlin Clark team or a Kelsey Mitchell team? Because they can't be both. Not long-term. Not under this CBA structure. And if they choose wrong, they're not just losing a player. They're losing their entire window of championship contention. Caitlin Clark is 22 years old. She just finished the greatest rookie season in WNBA history. 19.2 points, 8.4 assists, 5.7 rebounds per game, Rookie of the Year, all WNBA first team. She brought more viewers to women's basketball than any player since Diana Taurasi. Her jersey outsold every other player in the league combined. She is the franchise. Aaliyah Boston is 22 years old. She's a dominant two-way center who's improving every season. Together, they're the foundation of a potential dynasty. That's a 10-year window if Indiana doesn't mess it up. Kelsey Mitchell is 28 years old. She's entering the back half of her prime. Her playoff performance in 2024 raised legitimate questions about durability and consistency under pressure. She's still a good player, but she's not a franchise cornerstone, not anymore. And paying her like one would be organizational malpractice. Because here's what happens if Indiana chooses Mitchell over Clark. Caitlin becomes a restricted free agent in 2027. Indiana can match any offer, but they can't force her to stay if she's unhappy. And if she's watching the front office prioritize a declining veteran over building a championship roster around her, why would she want to stay? She could sign the qualifying offer, play 1 year, and leave as an unrestricted free agent in 2028. Suddenly, Indiana is the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2010, watching their generational talent walk out the door because they failed to build properly around him. That's the nightmare scenario, and it's completely avoidable. All Indiana has to do is let Kelsey Mitchell walk, thank her for 7 years of service, wish her well, and move on. Use that cap space to re-sign Lexi Hull, who shot 46% from 3 in the playoffs and is only 25 years old. Use it to bring in a veteran point guard who can run the offense when Clark sits. Use it to add depth at the forward positions where Indiana got exposed against Connecticut. Build a complete roster around Clark and Boston instead of trying to squeeze 3 max players onto a team with no supporting cast. This isn't about disrespecting Kelsey Mitchell. It's about understanding where the franchise is in its competitive cycle. Indiana isn't trying to stay mediocre. They're trying to win championships. And championship teams are built around young, ascending superstars, not aging veterans on max contracts. Golden State didn't pay Harrison Barnes the max in 2016. They let him walk and signed Kevin Durant. San Antonio didn't overpay for veteran role players in the early 2000s. They built around Tim Duncan and let everyone else be replaceable. That's how you sustain excellence. You identify your untouchable core and make every other decision based on maximizing their window. For Indiana, the untouchable core is Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Everyone else is negotiable, and that includes Kelsey Mitchell. It doesn't matter how long she's been there. It doesn't matter how much fans like her. It doesn't matter that she was loyal during the bad years. What matters is whether paying her a max contract makes Indiana more likely to win a championship. And the answer is no, because that money could be better spent on 3 or 4 quality role players who fit around Clark and Boston perfectly. That's not cold. That's professional sports. Look at what Connecticut did. They let Jasmine Thomas walk in 2022 after 8 years with the franchise. It was an emotional decision, but it was the right decision. They needed cap space to build around Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner. 2 years later, they're championship contenders. Las Vegas made similar moves. They let Liz Cambage walk in 2022 despite her production, because she didn't fit their culture. They prioritized Aja Wilson and built everything around her. Result? 2 championships in 4 years. That's what Indiana needs to do. Make the hard decision now so they don't regret it later. And if Kelsey Mitchell is willing to take a 1-year max deal with no long-term security, great. Bring her back for 2025, see how it works, and reevaluate next summer. But that's not happening. She's going to get multi-year offers from multiple teams, and she's going to take one of them. Which means Indiana's decision is already made for them. They're losing Mitchell either way. The only question is whether they panic and overpay her to stay, or whether they let her walk and use that cap space intelligently. One path leads to championship contention. The other leads to mediocrity and Caitlin Clark eventually demanding a trade. So what would you do? If you're running the Indiana Fever, are you offering Kelsey Mitchell a multi-year max contract? Or are you thanking her for her service and building around Clark and Boston? Because you can't do both. The CBA won't let you. And this decision is going to define the next decade of Indiana basketball. Drop your answer in the comments. And if you think Mitchell deserves the max regardless of fit, explain how you're keeping Lexi Hull and affording Caitlin Clark's extension in 2 years. I'll wait.